read a piece of a magazine I write for out of New Jersey called X the Unknown. And when I went in June to the Loch, it was very interesting. I got to attend the research expeditions with the Academy of Applied Sciences, Dr. Robert Rines, Charles Wyckoff, Harold Edgerton from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I also met Dr. Roy Mackel from the University of Chicago and Adrian Schein, who launched Project Deep Scan, which was a massive sonar tracking of the Loch. So I had an opportunity to shake hands with the bigwigs. And what impressed me so much is it's not as factionalized as UFO research. I'm a member of MUFON, but I'm anti-MUFON, virulent anti-MUFON. The state directors perpetuate their own personal beliefs, and if you don't believe it, well, excuse my French, screw you. And so I've been in battle with MUFON, and I love to get their fur ruffled whenever I can. But with Loch Ness, everybody helps out, and everybody works together. And Don has noticed that the factionalization of Bigfoot research, whether it's the Pacific Northwest, or even here in Ohio, people backstabbing, making up stories about other researchers and even discrediting some of their work. So that's what was so refreshing about Loch Ness, but I'm going to read it. It's called Locked Out at Loch Ness, to appear in this month's edition of X the Unknown. And if you'd like to subscribe to that magazine, it's like $10 for 15 issues. It's well worth it. Anyways, in an age where a paranormal occurrence brings big publicity, a paranormal television program brings high ratings, and a paranormal film brings big box office returns, one tends to forget the thing that started it all. In 1933, strange reports of a sea monster emanated from a loch in the Scottish Highlands. It was not until 1947 that Kenneth Arnold witnessed 9 flying saucers skipping across the heavens. Serious research into man-beast anthropoids did not commence until the 50s, with Rene de Hinden and John Green's inquiries. 65 years on, Nessie holds out as a senior enigmatic entity. During that time frame, a collaborative effort has been underway by those intrigued by its anomalous mystique. On a recent trip to the United Kingdom, I had an opportunity to wander Scotland. From Glasgow, normally it's a 4-hour saunter to the Highlands. Well, the M80 swallowed me up immediately as I departed the car hire, and I was as disoriented as an aloof blue hair. This rolling menace was in the wrong side of the car and on the wrong side of the road. A salty Scotty in a cab then gave me a single-digit salute. Like a Caribbean bobsledder, I righted myself quickly and got it up to 75, as speed is a universal trait. Screaming off of the M80 like Michael Schumacher, I hit the A9 on a dead run. This was my Grand Prix, as in Europe speed is of the essence. The unwritten decree is eat or be eaten, and at one bend of the road, lay-by, I swear I was up on 2 wheels like Joey Chitwood. Their roundabouts, rotaries, were numerous yet no match for me, having been cut off and run off at Massachusetts rotaries for half of my life. With the top down and BBC One blaring on a perfect June afternoon, I took in the rolling hills dotted with mad cows and cloned sheep as I broke from Mach 1. At Inverness, I was pulling 3 Gs while blitzing traffic queues on the A82 and nearly clipped some train spotters. With the drive time cut to 3 hours flat, I pulled into a petrol station. In the UK, gas station attendants hold you up. A liter of gas is $1, and I needed 50 to fill up. Loch Ness spreads open as soon as you approach the Caledonian Canal. It is a loch formed by the enclosure of 2 tectonic plates that were urged on by a receding glacier during the Great Ice Age. This is how the plesiosaur monster was trapped, according to some cryptozoological theorists. Unremarkable in stature, the loch is 24 miles long by 1 mile wide, with a maximum depth of 970 feet of cold, murky water. Because of the high peat content, due to the residual effects of erosion of its steep banks, the water is barely translucent. The weather changes so frequently that a downpour in Inverrigag is sunny skies in Doris, just a wee bit down loch. A smooth glass-like surface in front of Klansman Hotel is in shards with 4-foot chop less than a mile away in front of Foyers Hotel. With the rapidly changing weather and water conditions, I saw firsthand how the loch can offer up serpentine mirages. I reside for a week at the Drumnadrocket Hotel within the confines of the official Loch Ness Exhibition Center. Next door is the original Loch Ness Exhibition Center. In both museums, the lore of the loch is methodically displayed. Without souvenirs to hand out upon my return, I would be branded as a cheapskate. So I picked up some stones from the loch, several hand-blown glass Nessies from a shop, and 2 bottles of Scotch whiskey that some British Airways employee must still be chugging. Never got them. In a hurried departure from my hotel, I locked myself out of my room by inadvertently leaving the key on top of the telly. Lapping the loch more times than a thirsty dog, I shot many photos at Urquhart Castle, which is a 12th century ruin, the Benedictine Abbey at Fort Augustus, Inchnacardock Bay, and the falls at Foyers. Since they began in the 30s, the majority of undulating hump sightings have taken place at these aforementioned locations. Climbing rugged Queen Mary's Rock, nearly 1,000 feet, to get a panoramic view from the north side of the loch was well worth the trek. Naturally, tourists come to the loch with hopes of glimpsing the water beast, water horse, water kelpie, or whatever. Lochside, the locals embrace the sea serpent tradition and readily provide a charming speculation, a break from the info hoarding that permeates the UFO and Bigfoot investigative fields. For the prevailing attitude here regarding the existence of the Loch Ness Monster is, who knows? Who cares? Just come up and take a look for yourself. In deference to the burgeoning tourist industry, it is truly a majestic and mystical place, offering up continually divine sweeping vistas. My oversighting took place at the John Cobb Memorial Kiosk, a monument dedicated to a man who broke the water speed record, and then himself, in 1952. A massive school of fish was foraging at the surface of the loch about a half-mile offshore, with their picnic encompassing an area of nearly 100 yards in diameter. I'm not a good judge of measurement or distance, and who is, so you'll have to accept these as complete estimates. As the mob of fish, possibly salmon or cray, was creating quite a stir in a feeding frenzy of microorganisms, a boat came up from uplock and eventually ran parallel to it. The ship turned to starboard and now headed perpendicular to the fish party, which by now had broken up into two cliques. As the vessel bisected the two schools, its wake eclipsed the ripples created by the hungry fish, and presto, my first hump sighting. And you're going to see that tonight on video. Anticipating what would occur, I was poised to snap several photos that were out of focus as the craft traversed the twin fish lots. Now all I had to do was manufacture a yarn. One man who was keen to monster sighting fabrications is Willie Cameron of Loch Ness Marketing. He is quick to explain away most sightings as misidentification of marine life or debris, delusion through surface conditions, or wanton fiction. Cameron is not as quick to dismiss sightings by residents of the loch or credible witnesses like politicians, doctors, and lawyers. I don't consider them credible anymore. He should know how to sort through these thousands of alleged encounters, as his father, Ian, a former police officer, had the longest simultaneous multiple witness sighting in Loch Ness's history. As a keeper of the loch's event tradition, I began interrogating him on the litany of monster apparitions here. I've read many books and articles, seen all of the videos, and fire away with the confidence of a self-anointed authority. He dispels a few myths while creating a few new ones, and he's more skeptical than I am. He alerts me to the presence of Dr. Roy Mackle of the University of Chicago, the viceroy of cryptozoology, the study of animals that may or may not exist. As I barrel down the stairs from Willie's office, I say hello to Adrian Shine, who originated Project Deep Scan, a massive multi-vessel sonar tracing and tracking of the loch that took place in 1987. As I get to my locked car, I see the keys dangling from the ignition. At Temple Pier, I am befriended by a gentleman named Gordon Mangus, its owner, who is helping to outfit a crew exploring the loch. It's still a few hours before Captain John will take me out upon the Great Glen and around the loch's greatest depths at our Cruhart Castle for my tour. So I ask where I can find Dr. Robert Rhines and Charles Wyckoff of the esteemed Academy of Applied Sciences out of Boston. It is their 13th expedition to the loch, armed with spectacular results and evidence in the form of flipper head and neck photos, which you'll see, and indisputable sonar images that infer the presence of an anomalous large marine invertebrate. Charlie of Needham, my hometown, pops out of the garage, and we are formally introduced after corresponding for over a year. I had been on the phone with this guy who lived 2 streets over from me. Never got a chance to meet up with him until over in Scotland. According to Wyckoff, they took core samples of the loch. He knew I was a paraskeptic as an aside and thought that I had him in my crosshairs and that I was going to shoot him down because I did write an article with X questioning his flipper pictures, but I want you to decide. According to Wyckoff, they took core samples of the loch bed late the night before and had some great sonar results. Aside from accurately remapping where the Great Rift, which is a series of underwater caves and crevasses, lay, they had a large animate object react to a series of sonar pulses that they had emitted the night before. It approached the sonar buoy and then darted away by plummeting deep within the depths of the loch. Charles mentions that Adrian may be joining the day's expedition, and at my request, Gordon snaps our picture. What impresses me most about all of the Loch Ness investigators is how they pool their resources and don't admonish each other's work with the guerrilla slander and editorial terrorism that is so prevalent within the paranormal community. Everyone gets along. Willie is the fulcrum of media relations and accommodations at the loch. His sincerity and comprehensive knowledge of Loch Ness and the directed efforts of Rhines and Shine, get the play on words there, towards understanding the ecology of the loch and the surrounding habitat ensure that this pristine jewel of a body of water and its odd tenant will be preserved for the years to come. So that's my opening statement, and I want to go right to the slides right now, Don. And if I have time, when we go back to the video, I'll tell you about some sightings of Loch Ness on shore, which are my favorite to handle. But why don't we go right now to the slides. Again, this is June that I head out to Loch Ness. Okay, and weather, I show up the first day, it was beautiful. The sun was absolutely, it was out. As I made my way from, you can't see anything? Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay. You got it, John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All set now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Can you see now, or is it because I'm standing in your way? Okay, excellent. Okay, here we go. Folks, this is Loch Ness. This is a sign. As you come, the loch, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, is formed by two glacial plates that closed in this water. And hence the theory that this is an ancient dinosaur, a plesiosaur, that was trapped once these plates came in. A little far-fetched in my opinion, but not out of question. But this is a sign, as I came out of Inverness, a great area where the movie Loch Ness was filmed. Here's a sign about Loch Ness. Let's see what. Again, I am the world's worst photographer, by the way. My dad has won 21 awards he won at the fair with his photography, and I told him, Dad, I think that you adopted me, or I'm not related to you because I have no photographic ability. So this is the debut and the premiere of this Loch Ness footage tonight, and of my Roswell photographs. So I'm seeing them basically for the first time as well as you are, but I wanted to save them for my buddy Don and for my friends here to show them first off. That's why I have not lectured about this in the Boston area.
Is the water salt water?
No, the water is fresh.
Fresh water?
There's a very low salinity to it. I mean, very micro salinity to it. There's just a little bit. This is just from the water level. And keep in mind, as I told you, the weather changes instantaneously in the loch. Okay, I could be here here on that Abriacan Pier at water level, and across the loch, down over here, say, oh, I got my pointer, don't I, Don? I don't even have to go. This is cool. Over here, for instance, okay, it could be cloudy with a downpour. Okay, and if I'm in your way, I'll see that. Thank you. How's that? Okay. Okay, great. Good, great back of the head. And over here, it could be a downpour. And if you notice the chop here, this is about, I'd say about a foot swell here. Over here, it could be with a downpour about 4 or 5 foot chop with breaking waves and surf onto the shoreline. So the conditions are ever changing within Loch Ness. And it's truly a mystical place when you move about the loch. Now here's one, this is just north of Temple Pier, and again you can just see how the currents, it's a little calmer on this particular day with the sun out. The RAF was running strafing runs with Tornado jets and C-130 Hercules. They love to run down this 24 miles of loch because it gives them a nice little bombing run. Also there's 70 miles of shoreline if you go around this 24-mile loch. 70 miles, it takes you about 2 hours to go around. And the roads are very, very thin. You have to pull over in these laybys in order to let other people pass. So, and the Scottish drivers are wild. They'll honk if you go slow. Here again, another picture. This is looking, again, this is the south side. I'm on the north side. But this is looking towards the southeast in the area of Dories. This is another area moving and looking towards the south of the loch. This is, again, is Dories across the loch. But as you can see, the width of the loch, it's really not that impressive. And a lot of the serpent sightings don't occur from east to west, strangely enough, but they go from north to south, across the loch that way. Again, you can see the weather starting to cloud up here over the hills. It's getting cloudy down here. This area is Fort Augustus, where the Benedictine Abbey is. And you have tourists from all over the world. I found the most pleasant to be the English or the Scottish, the most obnoxious to be the Austrians and the Americans.
Is the fishing any good in the lake?
Yes, it is. There's salmon there, plenty of salmonid type fish, cray, a variety of eels. But yeah, that's a lot of these people that live along the loch make their livelihood through fishing, and the rest of the population makes their livelihood through tourism.
Landlocked salmon.
Exactly right. Although no, the salmon do make their way up the Caledonian Canal out into the Great Glen and out of Loch Ness. So they do move and spawn actually in the North Sea. And they move in, and you'll see that when I show you the video later on tonight. But again, you can just see the type of shoreline here. It's a really rustic type rocks. Again, the water looks clear here. Do not be fooled by that because it's murky. You cannot see more than 5-6 feet in front of you, which has hampered all sorts of Loch Ness investigations. That's due to the peat because the steep banks, it's a V-shaped formation, the peat, from all the rain that they get quite a good amount of rain, washes the banks, the dirt and the peat into the loch, and it just stays suspended in the water, and it makes for poor visibility. Again, this is a rare sunny day in June. There's summer, but the loch is relatively calm, and you know, these are some pictures I really got lucky on. I don't know if I even took them today. It should because they're too good.
Does it freeze over in the winter?
Seldom. It does. The ice will form up on the shoreline, but it's never frozen across, no. Because the climate in the highlands, believe it or not, stays moderate year-round. And the temperature of the water, now that you mentioned that, hovers about 45 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit. 54 degrees it'll get up to in July, and stay at about 45 the rest of the year. Just an aside to this, I got into Heathrow at about 2 in the afternoon, having flown all night from Boston. I jumped in a car, drove about 3 hours. It's normally a 4-hour ride to the loch, pumping down Coca-Cola. And I took a nap that night, and I woke up, and all of a sudden it was 10:30, and I said, oh my word, I've slept all the way till 10:30 in the morning. I get up, start taking a shower, go downstairs. It was 10:30 at night because the sun doesn't set till midnight there. So I got all confused, and I said, these Scots start drinking early because the bar was packed. And I'm saying, 10:30 in the morning, they've got a drinking problem here. So I decided to have one with them to make sure that everything was okay. But again, I'm taking photographs from the north side of the loch. This is our Coulthart Castle, a 12th century castle built by the Earl that ruled this area. And the ruins, there's a moat in here. It's no longer filled, but this is a castle that the man who collected exorbitant taxes from the residents in and around the loch and the highlands. A very picturesque view. Out of all the sightings of Loch Ness, predominantly they've taken place, this is called, right here, the Great Glen, the deepest part. About here is 970 feet to 1,000 feet, right in this area here. This is the deepest area, and the majority of serpent sightings have taken place over here. Again, a castle across the way. This is just west of Foyers. A lot of ancient ruins, they're pristine remnants. This is my favorite place, and again, you can start seeing that John's using 400 speed film when he should use 200. But this is Inchnacardock Bay. A lot of sightings have taken place here. Some school children in the 1940s saw the Loch Ness Monster ashore right over here. Okay, they were playing hide and seek around the loch, and there's some bushes over here, and they start to slither off into the water. There's been approximately 10 sightings throughout the history of Loch Ness with the monster on shore. More ducks, Inchnacardock Bay. There's an odd island in the middle of Inchnacardock Bay. I found that quite unusual. Again, sightings take place around here in Inchnacardock quite frequently, and around the corner of the castle's over here. I'm moving now. Again, I'm on the north side of the loch, and I'm actually moving west as we circumvent the loch. Inchnacardock again. You can see some clear cuts, okay, where they're doing some logging.
Have you ever heard the story of the Nessie actually snatched a boy out of a boat with his father? This guy I read this article, it's been years ago, and this man wrote the story that Nessie stole his son. Just came up, snatched him, and gulped him down and went down in the water. You ever heard of it?
Just now. I will tell you, though, that the only time I've ever heard of Loch Ness encountering or chasing after an individual and trying to cause it harm was the first Loch Ness encounter, 565 AD, St. Columba, who apparently chased the great beastie because it had swallowed a man whole, and they found this dismembered body on the shoreline. Another man went out to try to frighten it away, and as the monster charged, St. Columba charged at it with his staff. But no, I've never heard that before, but I would like to talk to you after the meeting and find out where you got that information. Here's some mad cows in Scotland. Just outside Fort Augustus. This is Fort Augustus. This area is known as Borlum Bay, B-O-R-L-U-M. If you notice the chops picking up, you've got some real big surf over here. The Benedictine Abbey would lie just behind me where I'm taking the photograph. This is a sonar sounder, which the people who are using sonar traces of the loch, they use this to reflect the sound off to get bearings of where they are in the loch. Again, many monks throughout the years, and these are religious people that claim they've seen heads sprout out of the water, neck and head, humps, undulating humps and whatnot. Hot spot. This is again taken from Borlum Bay, and again the wrong exposure, but I'm looking directly down loch. Okay, I'm actually looking to the east. This is the north side, the south side of the loch. And as you can see on any given, if you get a good clear view, you can see about 75% of the loch from certain vantage points. And of course, at the loch, out of focus, maybe I can too bad. Anyways, these are locks at Loch Ness. Okay, I'll show you that. Again, locks, Loch Ness. People were fascinated, standing for hours watching these open and close. And I got my amusement in about 5 minutes left, but there's still people there fascinated. I guess they don't have good TV over there, which they don't. BBC stands for Bland Broadcasting Company. Here you go. This is the Benedictine Abbey, okay, full of monks. And this is a tower where many sightings have occurred. But throughout the years, over the past 65 years, several monks, actually even longer, 100 years, monks have reported seeing the wildebeest from the abbey.
Did it affect their religion?
I don't think so. I don't think it had any religious impact. It's just that they were trying to exemplify the veracity of their recounting of the sightings. Again, this is the Abbey, and I guess this is Abbey Road right here. So we're going to see if Paul crosses barefoot. From a clear cut, I'm moving up towards Craig Moni's Rock, which is Queen Mary's Rock. This is looking at the falls at Foyers, the beautiful, spectacular waterfall at Foyers, where Tim Dinsdale in 1960 got some amazing footage of a wake and a neck protruding about 3 feet out of the water. Again, this is from Foyers. The Foyers Hotel would be just off screen here, looking at the north side. Now, you heard of Loch Ness? Well, this is Loch Mess. Look at that garbage there, huh? You know? Okay, this is the original Loch Ness Exhibition Center, which is adjacent to the official Loch Ness Exhibition Center. But there's a sea serpent there.
They really take it seriously.
Absolutely. This is in the official Loch Ness one. No, actually, this is a real Loch Ness monster. I don't care if you don't believe me, but it's about 4 in the morning. It popped its head out of the water, and then it just ducked down seconds after I took it. No, this is a dummy. The Japanese people were amazed at taking photographs. So, again, they stood there for hours. Again, your cloned sheep. I think this is the original sheep, and these are all duplicates of that sheep. Looking just beyond Fort Augustus is over here in the Benedictine Abbey. This is from Queen Mary's Rock, out of focus and exposure, looking from the north side of the loch. This is a 1,000-foot rock that I hiked up. Took me several stops and bottles of water, but to take this photo here, I stayed just over in this area. Do you notice I'm pointing things out that are obscured? Again, Queen Mary's Rock. Queen Mary's Rock, and look at that, it was in focus, and that's pure luck, my friends. Queen Mary's Rock. I'm going to show you some more Queen Mary's Rock. And that ends the portion of these Loch Ness slides, okay? Again, the video is much more detailed. But now I wanted to move into Loch Ness. Don, do you think you could throw the lights? Great. Just regarding Roswell now, brief statement on Roswell. First of all, I guess Don's going to be having a 50-50 raffle. I'm going to be giving away, well, these are free pictures. Anybody that they can have them, they're not collector's items, and I don't think they ever will be. I've got a complete 6-part story it's called Classified New Mexico, the Hollowing of New Mexico, as I call it. It's a hollow state, but it's a 6-part story in detail about my antics in 1996 when I went to Roswell for the first time. And it points out the holes in the stories. But briefly, raise your hand if you've heard of Roswell, New Mexico. Everybody? Is there anybody? Okay, so everybody basically knows that in and about July 4th, 1947, several residents, including some nuns of Roswell, New Mexico, saw a bright object plummet overhead and impact into the valley. A man by the name of James Ragsdale came forward in 1994 through Kevin Randall, stating that he was out, and I'm not making this up, he was out with his girlfriend named Trudy Truelove, and I guess they were having true love in the back of his pickup truck, and they see this bull light go over. I've seen it before. And anyways, according to Ragsdale, he walks up to the edge of the rim with a flashlight and sees this impacted disc. Well, they go back to the pickup, he goes back to the pickup truck and waits till dawn. And as he goes down into this area, at the Corn Ranch, the first site, he sees dead aliens scattered about, an impacted craft. And right as he's there, in comes the military, careening over the hills and swearing and threatening everybody to secrecy. Signs a sworn affidavit. Okay, the Corn Ranch, the people start charging $15 admission. By the way, there's going to be a lot of people with arthritis at these crash sites, if you get my hint. You know what I'm saying? Money driven. And I liken Roswell to a burgeoning tourist industry circa 1933 with Loch Ness. They're trying to find themselves and will do anything to make sure that fools like myself come down there and drop a buck. Anyways, Ragsdale says he sees this craft impact into a hill. His testimony is inconsistent. And later, on his deathbed, and I hate deathbed confessions. I do not accept deathbed confessions because dead men do not tell any lies, and you can make up whatever dead men say. Anyways, he said he signs and recants his testimony and says that no, he was wrong. It's over at Boy Scout Mountain, and signs another sworn affidavit. Obviously, the Bible means nothing to this man, nor does sworn testimony. And I think he got like $7,000 cash. Okay? And had he lived, he died, he would have probably had a third crash site, and he would have trotted out a fourth crash site. But anyways, backpedaling, back to the original crash site, when Ragsdale said, when he got out of his pickup and saw this thing impacted into the side of a hill, well, it happened to be on the Corn Ranch. Hub Corn and Sheila Corn owned this ranch. And after Kevin Randall released his book, UFO Crash at Roswell, and then he re-released it called The Real Truth about the UFO crash at Roswell, and his next book will be, honest to God, I'm not kidding, this is the final, really final truth of Roswell. That's his third and final book. Anyways, he releases that, and people are trancing on the Corn Ranch. So Hub Corn, and I don't blame him, starts charging $15 to see this cliff, and you'll see it, an extraterrestrial wailing wall, a Blarney Stone for ufologists. You just stand there staring at this rocky ledge, so that's where UFO is. In the UFO Museum, the International UFO Museum, there's two. There's UFO Enigma, owned by John Price, and then there's International UFO Museum that has a board of directors, and they're the more famous UFO museum. Anyways, they wanted to cut from Hub Corn of his $15 per person. They wanted a commission for referring people. Hub Corn told them to get lost. At that point, they went to Ragsdale, who was now on a respirator, and got him to sign another sworn affidavit pointing over to an area in Boy Scout Mountain, land that they had purchased. Okay, so they could charge admission. Strike three, you're out. Any Ragsdale testimony in my book is nonsense. Okay? Back to the story. The story as we know it, the facts. I call those crash people by impactees, I call them. You know, that believe that there was an impact site. Again, they're grasping at straws, and there is, if you look at it, there is little veracity to their story. Anybody can tell a story. There's a woman, Frankie Rowe, I'm going to show you a slide of her. Her testimony was so consistent. I was so impressed by it. When she told about how the military man came into her kitchen and threatened her, a tear would roll down her eye. Well, I've got 7 different interviews of her, and at the exact same point, the tear rolls down her eyes. And then it hit me. Oh my God, she's acting. She's spouting dialogue and hitting her cue. If I could, I've done amateur acting back in Boston. If I could act along somebody like that. And so when I interviewed her, I asked her, I said, you did theater, didn't you? And she goes, how did you know? So strike three, she's out of the ball game. But anyways, as the story goes, July 4th, people in Roswell, amongst them nuns, with Dan Wilmot sitting on his front porch, violent thunderstorm. Meanwhile, at Alamogordo Army Airfield, to the west, by about 170 miles, are having strange anomalous blips and returns on their radar that they cannot explain. Okay, and radar in its infancy, as you know, what went on at Trinity Site, which is in the White Sands Missile Range. That's where we detonated the first atomic bomb. So as Stanton Friedman would say, if UFOs were investigating the Earth, this was the place to be. So anyways, back to the story. People talk about seeing this object go over like a bolide. Well, Matt Brazel, a rancher, has his sheep, and this tract of land that he was leasing from the Bureau of Land Management, he's herding his sheep to this area, and suddenly they come across, now could you face the camera this way just so I can see my bleed plus there. He comes across this anomalous area. The sheep refuse to cross this area. It's littered with debris. And he's angry. He goes back to his neighbors, the Proctors. He goes into a bar in Corona, says, you know, what am I going to do about this? Well, it's a week after Kenneth Arnold came out with the first flying saucer sighting. It's about a little over a week. Arnold saw it June 23rd, 1947, Mount Rainier, Washington, 9 objects, flying in formation. He lands, and by the time he lands, it's news everywhere. He described them as saucers skipping across the heavens. A newspaper reporter picks it up, hence deems them flying saucers. Well, anyways, this is big news, 1947. And let's face it, a rancher in New Mexico, you know, probably the Waltons had more technological advantages than this guy did as far as what was going on. The Proctors then put the seed in his head. There's a reward, you know. The newspaper's putting out a reward, $10,000 for flying saucer. Cha-ching. He thinks, here's a poor rancher now that I've got this debris. This is a flying saucer. Okay, he's not thinking weather balloon or anomalous debris. He's thinking UFO, flying saucer. He goes into town, tells the sheriff. Sheriff Wilcox in turn calls Roswell Army Airfield, the Army Air Force, and 2 CIC men, Counterintelligence Corps officers, come up. One of them being Jesse Marcel, the other one being Sheridan Cabot. Well, Brazel takes them out to the field. It's so far and remote, they have to stay overnight in a shed and eat cold beans. They go out the following morning at dawn, collect up the debris as much as they can stuff into their vehicles and on Mac's horse, and then bring it back. That night, Jesse Marcel, one of the Army Air Force officers, CIC men, shows the debris to his son. Okay? So that's the story. Mac goes into town. Suddenly, he's whisked away by the military. He's held for 5 days by the military. When he's released by the military, he's seen driving a brand new pickup truck, and he gets a brand new freezer. Okay? A press release is issued by Walter Hauk. And again, I've spoken with Walter Haut, I've spoken with Jesse Marcel Jr. Walter Haut, on orders from Butch Blanchard as colonel, releases this press statement about a flying saucer, flying disc recovered in Roswell. Very odd and peculiar statement. Irresponsible dissemination of information from the strongest branch of the military in the world. I just can't understand where it would come from, where somebody like that could misidentify it. Now, common lore says that Jesse Marcel knew everything. He knew aircraft and could identify anything. And that's not true. Jesse Marcel was an Air Force man, could identify aircraft. Again, he was with the 509th Bomber Group, which was the first atomic wing, which dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. But that didn't make him an expert in meteorology or meteorological instruments, no. So you've got to understand that. Anyways, the press release is released. Phones are tied up at the airfield. The colonel is going nuts. Suddenly, a call comes in from the Pentagon, Washington. What the hell is going on out there? I don't care what you found, retract that. They retract the story, it's buried, it's dug up by Len Stringfield from Ohio in 1978, picked up by Bill Moore, Stan Friedman, and Charles Berlitz in 1989 in Unsolved Mysteries. Does a piece on it. So in a synopsis, and I'm rushing through this because I have so much to show you, that's your story. And I'd like to get to the slides right now of Roswell, New Mexico. I've been there twice. I will say an aside. The debris is flown to Carswell Army Airfield in Fort Worth, Texas, for a photographic opportunity. At this point, the story's been retracted. It's a weather balloon, misidentified. Well, the old story that's been circulated and perpetuated by the UFO investigators is that there was a debris swap. The flying saucer debris was brought into Ramey's office, General Ramey's office, and then taken away, and they laid down the weather balloon debris and took photos. That's why Jesse has this frown on his face. I spoke with Irving Newton personally. Irving Newton is a meteorological officer that came to Fort Worth, to Ramey's office, to identify the wreckage. Check this out. He told me that as soon as he came into the office, he identified it. That's a weather balloon, a Rowan target song, a Rowan-Zahn target balloon. And Jesse Marcel picked up the debris and said, oh, no, Corporal, you don't understand, this is a flying saucer. No, that's a weather balloon. And they had a little bit of an argument. There was no debris swap. Okay, so know that. It's a very important fact, and the UFO investigators refused to release that information. I have it on tape. It's been released in a Discovery special. There was no debris swap.
Was you there when they had the big celebration?
Yes, I was.
Was you disappointed in the amount of people? They were expecting thousands of people.
Exactly. Well, yeah, they were expecting 50,000, and then I'd say there were 20,000, and out of those 20,000, I'd say that 10,000 have to be heavily medicated. I met a man who said he was from the planet Zeltar. He told me. I had another man who said he was blinded by a UFO. And I'm talking to the man, blinded by a UFO, so I drop $1 on the floor, and I'm walking away, and he picks it up. And there's just a lot of odd people, myself included, that went down there. And I wish I'd stayed in Alamogordo. My trip, usually when I go to Roswell, I'll go to Albuquerque, sniff around Kirtland Air Force Base, look at black helicopters because there's special operations groups out there. In fact, that is where they train them. Now, black helicopters belong to special operations for alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. We'll give obsolete aircraft to them, and they'll paint them black. If you don't have any FAA markings, well, you're non-existent in the FAA books. You can fly at any altitude, fly out of anywhere, any time of night, and you're invisible. You don't exist. But black helicopters, whereby the UFOs manifesting themselves in some sort of cultural tracking into helicopters, nonsense. It's Mother America's way to check into the terrorist game unnoticed. Okay, with all the terrorism now, we can deliver a furious clap of silent thunder, and that's what special operations are for. I'm very pro-military, being the son of a military officer. I hate when people bash the Air Force, because if it weren't for the Air Force, Saddam Hussein would have a stranglehold on on the oil fields, and we'd all be riding bikes here or paying $5.50 a gallon of gas. So I have trouble with people. The Air Force loves you. The Air Force has protected you. A lot of men and women sacrifice themselves to give us this great country. And if you're going to take a pot shot at the Air Force, well, you better not be using an automobile. You better not be using a computer. These are all this technology is gleaned through Air Force research. So be true to yourself, but I just hate this government bashing that goes on. People taking up arms against their own government. And, you know, if you don't like it, leave. But anyways,
It's a very recent sport.
well, yeah, it is a recent sport, but I don't want to get in. I'm a Republican, by the way. Okay, here we go. Launch then. Okay. This is where a UFO crashed in Loch Ness. No, I'm kidding. Okay, this is the unexplained CD-ROM out of Flag Tower in London. I was a spokesperson for the CD-ROM. If you ever see it on the shelves and you got the, probably $19.95, it's probably $10 now. Great, it's very informative. It takes about 3 hours. I use it as a teaching tool. I got a lot of national exposure, national television exposure, including Tom Snyder, Extra, Entertainment Tonight. I got a lot of pieces done on ABC Radio, so this really did a lot for me in my career in 1996, by Flag Tower out of London. It contains UFO photos as such, ghosts, and whatnot. This is Stanton Friedman. Stanton Friedman, a ufologist, itinerant nuclear physicist. I've met him several occasions. He's probably the best take on the UFO circuit, a great speaker. If he ever comes to Ohio and you get a chance and you're within striking distance, go see him. He's great. The only thing is that he will stand on a theory and sit on it like a mother hen on its egg, okay? He first proposed that there was one flying saucer crash at the Corn Ranch. Now, and I pointed it out to him several times before, it's nonsense. Nothing came down. The only thing that came down at the Corn Ranch was a big pile of bull cookies. And now he's saying that there are two flying saucer crashes, one on Boy Scout Mountain and one at the Corona Ranch, that they had a collision. And soon he'll have 3 flying saucers. But one thing that Stanton Friedman did mention was he thinks that there was an event out on the plains of San Augustine, which is in Socorro, which is over 200 miles to the west of Roswell. And the thing that intrigued me about that story in the plains of San Augustine, and I've investigated out in that remote, desolate area of desert, is a story that emanated from a traveling salesman called Barney Barnett in the late 40s and early 50s. He swears that he came upon a road that was cordoned off by the military. He was forced to turn his vehicle around. As he was turning his vehicle around, he saw this trailer bed come out of the desert with a flying saucer underneath a tarpaulin. But that story was in circulation long before this Corn Ranch debacle and Roswell debacle came to be, which would lend credence in my eyes. You know, stereotypes tend to stick around because they reinforce themselves, and the same with lore. If there's not validity to it, it wouldn't stay around for so long. There's Stanton, myself and Stanton. This is Kevin D. Randall from the other school, and now they're at war. Friedman and Randall are at war with each other because Friedman was the one that discovered the gold. This guy was the one who looted his claim and mined it. So that's the way they look at it. But Kevin's a nice guy. They're both nice guys. It's just that Kevin now has backed himself into a corner because he's put all his chips down on the Ragsdale testimony. And as I just mentioned before, it's a bunch of nonsense. This is his buddy Don Schmidt, another nice guy. Great speaker, too. Schmidt and Randall were partners for about 5 years. Then somebody got some dirt on Don Schmidt that he had lied about one of the witnesses. He had made up a story about some of the witnesses' testimony, and there was questions about his job in the post office. The way I look at it is, we've all lied. And if there's anybody in this room that says that they haven't lied, you're lying. Again, Kevin D. Randall. This is in front of the UFO Enigma Museum display with the dead aliens lying about. Okay? And me again with Kevin Randall. This is Bud Hopkins, who's wrote a book called Intruders, Missing Time, and there's one about Brooklyn Bridge that's out. It's a nice book about where he says that Javier Perez de Cuellar, then the Secretary General of the United Nations, witnessed a UFO abduction. A woman floated out of her Brooklyn apartment just across the Brooklyn Bridge in plain sight of this official. Nice guy, very intelligent guy, resident of Cape Cod. I've really enjoyed talking with him. This is one, a little out of focus. This is supposed to be the Corona impact site. I'm trying to put it chronologically where the disc impacts. I don't have a little toy here. Where the disc impacts into the side of a hill. right there. This is me in front of the cartoon display with the alien there. And this is the way, this is supposed to be the Corn Ranch. It impacts the side of the hill, and there are dead aliens everywhere.
Where was the setting on this?
This particular museum I'm in is the International UFO Museum, okay? And this here, these are the dead alien bodies. Boy, they look authentic, don't they? I mean, incidentally, this the report that was released by Sheila Widnow, which I feel about the crash dummies in 1952. Well, I think the crash dummies are the people that investigated this stuff. That's my personal opinion. Again, here's a close-up of the impacted thing, and you have dead aliens lying everywhere. If you listen to the story, some people say there were 4 aliens, 2 dead, 1 died on site, and 1 was escorted under his own power into the Roswell Army Hospital. I cornered Kevin D. Randall on that, and I said, Kevin, you know, what's up with that? I mean, I debated him on ABC Radio, and I swear to God, it was like Holyfield against Tyson. If he got a chance to bite my ear, he would have, because I really bloodied his nose. And I felt bad for him. His voice was quaking. He could not. And here's Stan Friedman. I said, Stan, was the flying saucer crash either at Boy Scout Mountain or the Corn Ranch? And he says, well, that's not important. The important thing is there was a flying saucer crash. Stop it. Nonsense. You can't argue in that point. Again, this is supposed to be the military retrieval. They're here trying to pull this thing out. If you read Colonel Corso's book, which I think is fascinating, called The Day After Roswell, if anybody's heard of it, get it. Wait till it comes out in paperback, say $15. But it's called The Day After Roswell, and it just shows you how he claims that there was a crash at Roswell, that the debris, night vision goggles, the transistor, fiber optics were all gleaned from this crash flying saucer and somehow incorporated into American technology and given to separate companies so they could just silently slip it in to the industrial process. This is a dead alien. Let me tell you a little bit about this dead alien. This little bastard here cost me $1 million. I'm going to tell you why. Okay? All right, this is now in the International UFO Museum, okay? And there's a dummy here. Well, anyways, Bob Guccione, in July of last year, 1996, paid $1 million for this photograph of a close-up, saying it was the first photograph ever of a dead alien. As soon as I saw that, I said that was the dummy from Roswell. And in fact, to corroborate that, when I was in Roswell in 96, on the wall they had this Puerto Rican farmer fires on alien and kills it. And I pointed out to the curator of the museum, I said, sir, this is your own dummy. Did you notice that? And he looked at the picture, and he went around the corner and says, oh, you're right. He said, we better take that down. so if I had known in April of 96 when I took this photo, I could be riding a Jaguar now. Again, here's the dead alien, and again, this is what... See, that's the photo that was shown in Guccione's penthouse. Kick myself. And that's the one that... there's the penthouse photo, see it? And he said this is a dead alien, you know? That's the dummy that was on the table there. That's a bad one, but that's an alien leaving a crash saucer. That's me. There's that. I'm trying to duplicate that Guccione photo. But can you believe that he paid $1 million for that? Fool. That's again the penthouse photo. That's me and Frank Suhr. Now, Frank is a friend of mine, lives in Roswell, New Mexico. I camped in his backyard, and I will tell you, July 4th, 1997, 50 years to the day after this purported flying saucer crash happened, was the most violent lightning storm I'd ever seen. I was sleeping in a trailer in backyard, the wind was blowing, howling, I was praying my brains out. I thought I was going to get struck by lightning or just blown away. But he's a nice guy. He's interested in the debris field. Now, this is the map. It's on the wall in the International UFO Museum. So, in 96, when I was looking at it, I noticed that they moved this, by the way, the Corona debris site. This used to be pointed up here, because I wrote to them and told them that that's the wrong area, because I've researched the debris field. Again, this is not the impact site where these people are talking about the flying saucer crash. This is where the rancher, which is fact, found anomalous debris. I could never figure out why they're all looking for this mythical flying saucer crash site when there was a debris field. Of course, they say that the UFO did a touch and go. It hit the ground at the debris field, left some debris, and impacted. But nobody's ever gone looking for this, and it's been highly secretive. Well, I've been after Walter Haupt, the press information officer who released the press release in 1947, and I was hounding him with letters, and finally he said, okay, listen, here it is. I'm going to point it out to you once, and no one ever wants you to ask me again. He goes, like that. And so I said, okay. leaves the room, I look closely, I get some cigarette ashes and put it where his fingerprint was, and I videotaped exactly where he pointed out. And I also corroborated with Kevin D. Randall and some other witnesses, and Frank Schurer, the man who I just showed you in the aforementioned photo. We decided it was in this area. So I'm claiming now, and I have in several articles, that I found the lost debris field. You're going to see some photographs of it. But this used to be pointed up over here, and they moved it just because I said, and again, alleged impact site. And then here's the Boy Scout Mountain site, okay? And here's the Corn Ranch site. Okay, this is one, Corn Ranch site is here, rather. This is one site, and here's the Ragsdale site. I made it about 10 grand by changing this testimony.
What's the scale on that map?
Each square, thank you, Tom. Each square, I think, is like 100 square yards or something like that.
Those are only a couple miles apart.
Basic, well, they're about 19 miles apart.
Where's the town in relation to that picture?
Here's Roswell right here.
Okay.
Okay? Roswell's there, and that's the Corn Ranch, which is about a 20-minute ride up the road. You wait for Sheila Corn to come here, and they get bus loads. During that festival this year, they truck them in. And this is a little more remote. This, to me, this area, I just think that the UFO Museum purchased this land just to charge admissions because Corn would not give them. I got to go admission. Okay. This is the debris field. And a few things led me to this. Number one, Walter Hout, this is not a UFO. Walter Hout had pointed it out, Kevin D. Randall, Stanton Friedman, Frank Schurer, who has a friend that allegedly was involved, that went out to the debris field. I'm not talking about the impact site, the debris field, but allegedly pointed this area out. So this is where the rancher would find the debris. We found windmills too, because he was looking for water, and windmills indicating water, and that he was bringing his sheep across this way until they encountered the area. Okay, this is Frank walking on the debris field. Again, that's the ravine crevasse, or arroyo as they call it, and this is where the area where he found the anomalous debris. And again, plus or minus 100 square yards here. That's me in my silly tennis outfit. This is the photo. Up on top here is where we believe the debris field lies. And this was a find. This is a photo circa 1947. We found this rock indentation. A photo that was taken at Brazel a couple of days afterwards in this area. Again, the debris field laying behind me here.
Any dangerous snakes?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Without question. In fact, if you lift up any of these rocks, you're going to find a scorpion probably or a snake. Absolutely. I was terrified in that area. And I refused to camp out in that area. Okay. This shed is famous, made famous by the Roswell movie by Paul Davids, Strong on Fiction, Weak on Fact. Good story anyways, but this is the debris. Well, first of all, when Marcel came out with the CIC man, the other CIC man, Sheridan and Cabot, they stayed with Mac the night before they went out to the debris field and ate cold beans here. They went out to the debris field here, another 20-25 miles by horseback and off-roading it, and then they stored some of the debris here to be collected the next night. And the tennis outfit in front of the debris, the shed.
Hey, you got around.
Yeah, I did, didn't I? This again is the shed, the process shed. Okay, this is out of focus. This is Hangar 84. This is allegedly where the debris was stored. The cadavers were stored here before they were flown out. Boy, I am a bad photographer. Before they were flown out of Roswell to, if you want to listen to the stories, Wright-Patterson, or then it was just Wright Field in Dayton. Carswell Army Airfield. Some people say it was trucked to Wright-Pat out of here. But anyways, there was a guard standing pat here by the name of Brown. He allegedly said that he took a peek inside because one of his cohorts said, "Hey, Brown, come in and take a look at this." They peeled back a wooden crate and they looked inside, and this suspended in some sort of fluid was this alien cadaver. Again, that's a better one. So
That's the only
and I'm doing these slides for the first time, you guys, with you. This is a premiere here. This is Hangar 84. They had a speech with Whitley, I Love Aliens Strieber, who wrote Communion. And what was the other foolish thing? Transformation. I asked the guy, okay, he's talking about, now let's talk about alien abduction here for just a second. Let me get this straight. They come into your house at night, steal you from your bed against your will, take you up into a flying saucer, perform horrific sexual experiments on you, erase your memory, throw you back in bed and implant something into you. Now, that's kidnapping, rape, trespassing, but Whitley Strieber says it's very spiritually enriching. situation. So I had a problem with this alien lover, and I asked him a question. I said, the paramount question that must be asked in the bowels of the Pentagon has to be, as a species, what are we going to do to rid ourselves of this cosmic nemesis, this gene-jacking pirate that comes across the galaxy? And he says, oh, you're a typical person that doesn't understand anything. You don't understand it, you want to kill it with a stick. And so I mumbled to myself, where's a bat when you need one, you know? He just don't buy his books. He's an arrogant SOB. He's just really, don't buy his books. You're not going to learn
What
anything.
kind of airplane parked out front?
DC-10.
Thank you. U.S. Airways, Mark. Here again, the Hangar 84. They had a nice banquet here. Whitley Strieber spoke, okay, on July 4th. And there was the horrific lightning storm that I was mentioning. And it was great. Half of his speech was drowned out by the rain on top of the roof and the lightning. So I was very happy about that. Okay, this is Walter Howe. He's the press information officer. I've spoken with him a couple of times. He got irritated when I was looking for the debris field. This man, all he said is, hey, I only was under orders. Colonel Blanchard, Butch Blanchard, told me to type up that release. He gave me it verbatim. I released it. That's it. This guy knows more than he's saying. An old adage to use with Roswell is, those who know are not talking. Those who don't know are talking. And this guy is not talking. And I think that he knows more than he'll hold on to. And he has the true story. Anyways, he's a nice man, co-curator of the museum. This is the replica of the radio newsroom where Walt Whitmore from KGFL made that historic broadcast about an Army Air Force recording a flying disc. Moments later, over this teletype, the FBI intercepts a message that says, stop transmitting. A phone call comes. If you transmit that story again, we're going to yank your FCC license. Jesse Marcel Jr., his dad, this is Walter again, his dad was the officer who came out of Roswell. Now let me tell you, I want to dispel another myth here, Ms. Don Schmidt. You hear people saying that they handled the material, that the material was of an odd metallurgy, an unyielding alloy, that if they crumpled it up in their hands, it would unwad itself and flatten itself out. Okay? Now this guy handled the debris. He was only 10 years old. He's been hypnotically regressed. And he says, as far as the material having a memory, that's nonsense. He said it was an odd alloy. It was light, almost balsa wood light. But he never said that that unfolded upon itself. So just this is the guy who actually handled the debris. Never said that. So just keep that in mind. It's Glenn Dennis, the mortician. Okay, Glenn Dennis said that he had a contract with the base. Call in, he gets his call in. There's been a terrible crash. He comes to the hospital. As he comes into the hospital, he says that he looks into the backs of 3 vans packed up, and I performed these experiments, backed up to the Roswell Army Hospital, and inside them he sees a canoe-shaped piece and other parts of debris. Now, in order for him to see inside 3 vans backed up, he'd have to have the peripheral vision of Magic Johnson. It's nearly impossible for him to see it. He's changed his testimony sometime. He's given the name of this nurse that he allegedly met up. Drew a picture. He had a Coke with her. When she saw him enter the hospital, she said, you gotta get out of here, Glenn. You're not supposed to be here. He was stopped by MPs, harassed, and told to forget about it, get out of the hospital, and he was escorted off the base. He's changed the name of the nurse a few times, and his story is very inconsistent. Frankie Rowe, the actress. Remember I told you about the woman who could cry on demand? This is her. Okay? And this is moments after I had asked her if she had acted before. So she thought I was her friend. Okay, look to the right here. This is a man who represented Jim Ragsdale, okay, that spoke to him, Max Littell, who's a notorious liar. This is Stanton Friedman. This is Don Schmidt, Glenn Dennis, Jesse Marcel. This is the daughter of the sheriff, Sheriff Wilcox, and this is Walter Howe. Again, same gang of fun going down. With some shots. I'm the only one, incidentally, this is a press conference taking place. This is a rarity. You'll never see this take place again. It was on July 6th. I was just heading out. I was heading back to Socorro, out of the plains of Santa Augusta. And I was in the front row with Frank and his wife Audrey. And we reserved the seats for 2.5 hours. Somebody would sit for a half hour, reserve the front row seats like you guys. But the audio was so poor. I'm the only one that has this entire testimony on tape with great audio. Which leads into a segue. If you want to buy it, let me know. All right. Back to Loch Ness. This drum is done. We'll go to a different drum. Okay. Don, at 9:30, did you want to take a break, go to this drum, or do you want me to quickly whisk through this? Because it's up to you. Take a break?
Keep it going.
Keep it going? Okay. This, I want to get into the plains of San Augustine. And I will field questions, but... Okay. Now, we'll go with that. Okay, go for it. Okay, again, we'll go right through these. These are all the witnesses. Keep going. Keep going, more witnesses. Oh, here's an alien with the witnesses. It's a real alien, too. It said, what's going on here? Now, I always thought that was funny, flying saucer crash. Again, I'm from the school either there's been no flying saucer crashes or there's been an entire litany. Okay, and I've stood pat on the former, but I'm tending to believe the latter. But anyways, look out, Meldar, for that clip. You know, is that what happened? Meldar, watch out, where are those damn Nazca lines? You know, it just doesn't make sense. They come halfway across the galaxy and crash here on Earth. Okay, this man here is Daryl Sims, who claimed he had a piece of UFO debris, except his results were inconclusive. Like myself, he's a grandstander. He was just looking for the ink. He says he's got a piece of the debris, never showed it to anybody, never showed any sort of scientific or laboratory results. It fell out of focus, Don. Yet he claimed he had some UFO debris. And Paul Davis, the producer of that movie Roswell, was the impetus behind it. Again, publicity stuff. Okay, Sheila Corn. We're going out to the Corn crash site now. Sheila's unlocking the gate. She's got my 15 bucks in hand. We're all set to go. This is 96. Here we go. Some cattle out on the Corn Ranch. It's called T-O-R-N. This is bad. You're going to see some of these. This is her husband, Hub, okay, being interviewed. And he says he's been harassed by the military. And this is my friend Bill Hartman from Australia that I hung out with my trip out there. Real cool guy. He's been telling me about Bigfoot Yowie sightings in Australia. Okay, we'll move on. This is the Corn Ranch. The depression over here allegedly is where the impact took place. As we move closer, this is 1996. Right now, and I think I threw the slides in at the end. You have pillars here, you have commercialism and galore. Keep going down, we'll race through this. Again, we're approaching the Corn Ranch. That's me with my Harlem Wizards. Going over the Rockets, again, the Corn Ranch, the impact site, we're getting right on it there. Again. Here we go, we're getting close now. Here's the impact site. Apparently it impacted right in here, okay? And you're going to see some orange flags, markers that denote where dead aliens lay. We're going back again. Yep, keep going down forward. Yep. Told you we keep going through these. See, do you see this is the extraterrestrial wailing wall? You know, boy, that's exciting. I'm just taking a picture of a clip. Those are the pillars I was telling you about for exposure. But this is 1997, back in July. They put these pillars up, and I think something like 10,000 people saw this. 10,000 times 15, you do the math. 150 grand, of course, pop. You all know. Okay, this is 1996 now. And this is the impact site right behind me.
Is that one of the aliens on the ground?
Yeah, that's a rare alien puppy. That's right. Okay. Okay, let's see if we can see. Okay, Don, can you throw it into focus, please? This orange marker, if you see that right there, that's supposedly the impact taking place in here. An alien was sitting on there trying to, with a box in its hand, trying to monitor a signal of the mothership. Sheila told me that they had a psychic sit up there, and that's exactly what she felt, vibrations, that there was an alien trying to contact its mothership. Right there. Incidentally, I will say that those orange flags from 1996 through 1997 have been moved. They put them in different places. All right, again, right in here is supposed to be where an alien sat, trying to signal the mothership, and I think I'll get it close up. There's another one here. The orange flag. Nope. Yeah. This is the extraterrestrial wailing wall, the Blarney Stone for UFOs. There's where a dead alien lay. And again, that marker now in 1997 was moved up to here. So, you know, through some more research and testimony. Again, there's me again. Okay, here's another one. That's where a dead alien was, or one trying to summon a ship. All right, there's another marker where the alien is supposedly gone.
They made a gold mine out of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Why not? Okay, now this is Boy Scout Mountain. This is the alternate Ragsdale crash site. The International UFO Museum purchased the area of land right over here, and now they're charging the mission bus tours to take you out there. Next photo is also a Boy Scout right here. Okay. Now, this is what took place in Roswell on July 4th, that weekend right here. The video in here. So just go through these guns. You see a cadaver, alien cadaver being hauled out. Okay, I'm sure Bob Fujian will pay $500,000 for that. Here you see some strange people coming out. Swamp gas power. With the craft here. This is the Roswell UFO Expo and Trade Show. Men in Black, you've heard the icons. There's briefly a brief aside of Men in Black. They accompany UFO sightings. If you had a UFO sighting in the 50s or 60s, and even there are some stories that have come out of the 80s and 90s, three of these guys or one of these guys will knock at your door very stiffly, tell you that you're not to talk about the UFO sighting. If you do, something bad will happen to you. Then they speed away in a black automobile. You talk about your UFO sighting, nothing bad happens to you. Star Child, this here where a flying saucer crashed into a store. Moments after it happened, I managed to snap this photo. Ezekiel's Wheels, in biblical times, a prophet by the name of Ezekiel, he describes some sort of prophetic vision, and people say it's a UFO. UFO Enigma Museum, owned by John Price, in direct competition with the International UFO Museum. He's trying to sell it, he sold it, he just wants to write his books. He's a nice guy. It's just a shame that he's been ostracized. Ow. That's all right. You can see the crash saucer.
Latu and Gort.
That's right. Here you see some aliens. Okay, this guy here, Bill Line, okay, he's holding my card, which I regret that I gave to him. He's the most paranoid individual I've ever met in my life. He said that he's being followed by intelligence officers. He thought I was an intelligence officer. Man lives in complete paranoia. He wrote a book called Space Aliens from the Pentagon, which is a good book, but managed to lose him when I was in the expo. We were going through the hall, and I ducked into a table and never met him. This is I lost him. Fred Wilcoxon lives in Alamogordo, outside of Holloman Air Force Base. I've been contacting him over the past several months. He says he's seen several UFOs come out of Holloman. I know that there's a contingent of F-117 stealth fighters and B-2 bombers there. So I'm talking with him, and then my last conversation before I came out here, he said that he thought that FDR was assassinated. At this point, I got to really cut off my correspondence with nice guy, but when I heard that, I really can't do it. Alien green card sold here. Oh, wonderful. Jeeps with aliens in them. Jeep again with aliens in them. They're very good drivers, believe it or not. Nazi Foo Fighters. Here you go. The Nazis. They're on the moon. They're in Antarctica. They designed flying saucers. It's a bunch of crap. Okay, okay, I want to point out this area here. I'm in Socorro now. I'm heading to the plains of San Augustine. I'm a big fan of radio astronomy. I like to check out radio telescopes. I've checked out the one in Green Bank, West Virginia, the first radio telescope, the one in Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, there's one in New Hampshire, and there's one called the Very Large Array out of the plains of San Augustine. Anyways, in Socorro, I don't know if you heard the story, 1964, police officer Lonnie Zamora, and an off-road, he's on patrol, it's in the afternoon, sees an egg-shaped object land, he sees occupants get out, they spoon stuff out of the dirt, get into this egg-shaped vehicle, and it splits. He calls it in, they find burn traces, pod marks, a very good, very, very good UFO sighting. Very good UFO case. Now they built a house in that area. Sightings did a recreation of that, took them down to an area, I don't know if anybody saw that, Sightings, the television program, and they went to this completely fictitious area. This is where I found it, and this is, no, that's not, this is where it is now, there's a house on top. You know, appease Hollywood and the producers. Sign called the Plains of San Augustine. Very large array, I'm coming up on it on Route 60, 27 dishes spread 13 miles apart, the largest single radio telescope in the world. Violent lightning storms, some of the most severe lightning storms in America occur out in the plains of San Augustine, which formerly was a big, huge lake. And the dishes there, very large array, the BLA. They all basically are working either in symphony with each other or in individual projects, listening to individual stars, binary pulsars, black holes, and whatnot. Okay, now we get into the alleged crash sites. I told you about Barney Barnett, 1947, traveling salesman who swears that he was stopped by the side of the road. And this is the area that I picked, based on the description, where this, if it did happen, that in this general vicinity, this is where the Barnett flying saucer crash happened. Okay, he's the salesman, 1947. From a different angle, looking at the area where I think that happened. I'm on Route 60 here now. Alien autopsy footage, we've all heard about it. And one thing that struck me was the cameraman's statement. I think The information released by Ray Santilli, who's made about a $10 million windfall by selling that for $60 per copy to fools like myself, I think the story is totally bogus. And the only reason why I'm not saying that the footage is bogus, and people really roll their eyes when I say this, is because as far as hoaxing is concerned, which I consider to be a new genre in film and art, none of the actors have come forward. And moreover, if this guy made $10 million selling this footage, where are all the other Hollywood producers with their footage? You know, I'm a sucker, I'll buy your fake alien autopsy footage, but nobody's come forward. But anyways, based on the description of the cameraman, this is the area 10 miles to the southwest. This is the coral that should have happened. Again, the same area again, alien autopsy crash site right over this area. This is the first site of the Gerald Anderson crash site. Gerald Anderson was a man that Stanton Friedman found, a witness, who told Stanton Friedman, gave him 5 different crash sites before settlement. This is the first area where he said a flying saucer came down. Then he said, no, I'm sorry, Stan, I meant over in this area. This is near Cibola National Forest. He said, wait, did I say that area? I meant this area. This is near a crash site near an arroyo here that built a water tower. You know, Stan, I might not have been correct. I think it's this area right here. This is the 4th Gerald Anderson crash site. And then finally, he said, no, you know, Stan, I'm positive it's right over in this area. This is the 5th Anderson crash site. And this should show a gate. Yes, it does. Okay, now this is all washed out. But what struck me as odd, this is Route 12 now, outside of Old Horse Springs, okay? This road probably sees about 10 to 15 cars a day, if that. Okay, now why would I, and I'm going, Stan Friedman told me where to look. I called a rancher called David Farr, who owns this land. He was very nice on the phone, but refused to let me in on his property, so I jumped the fence and went in anyways. But there's a sign here that says private property, keep out, no trespassers will be prosecuted, Why do you have such a sign like that when all the other ranches dotting the plains of St. Augustine do not have a sign like that? I find it awful odd and awful strange that you would protect this area. It's a government sign too. I looked at it, was property of the United States government. This is not a private sign, so I'm wondering, with the rancher Farr, nice on the phone, but he was really evasive when I talked to him. Okay, this is Russ Estes trying to peddle his footage on Giant Rock in California. A good friend of mine, great comedian, Hollywood producer I've been trying to suck up to, trying to get a documentary done. This is John Mack, Dr. John Mack from Harvard University. I had a nice cup of coffee with him in his office. He's a professor under tremendous fire at Harvard University. They're trying to take away his tenure because he's been investigating alien abductions. Again, the witness panel, these are all throwaways. We go right, Don just race through them. Oh, no, go back to that one. That's what I do for a living. With the Harlem Rockets, we're in Curacao, and this is the beginning of the show. One of the players yells, hey, and I throw the papers in the air. Or then, no, I think that might have been on Montserrat, and then Montserrat. That is Montserrat. Okay, go ahead. Let's go ahead down. Okay, that's again, this overexposed pictures. Again, the corn site circa 1977. That's again the Nazi one, and I think that's it. We can get the plans. Thanks for your patience, folks. And again, I talked 1,000 miles per hour, but. Does anybody have any questions or want to ask me any questions?
I worked on those reflector telescope sector gears down there at the plains of what's her name?
St. Augustine.
Yeah.
But they're radio telescopes.
The sector gear drive.
Oh, okay. But they're not
Sector gear
reflector
drive. It's just a segment of gear. It's all made out of steel and heavy as hell.
10 points.
Are there any plans to go out to the possible debris sites and look for debris with metal detectors?
Okay, have people gone out with the metal detectors? Yes. Even though there's less than 2 inches of annual rainfall, oh, that was before El Nino, out there, people have gone out with metal detectors and have produced no results made public, at least. Okay, but it's a very valid question. A lot of people have done it, but with all these crash sites now, where do you look? You have so much area to search. But when I went out to the plains of St. Augustine, that gate that I showed you there, it's just a very odd sign. And I'm not going to say there was no flying saucer crash, but who's to say that the government, you know, when the government says something, turn 180 degrees and there lies the truth. Okay? I mean, that's just the way they work. But maybe that could have been some sort of disinformation pattern in Roswell, or maybe something did happen. If you look at the press release that was released on July 8th, 1947, they said that the rancher Mac Brazel recovered a disc and stored it in his barn. So what I'm saying is, and Brazel was kept under wraps, he was bought off. Who's to say that maybe that Brazel, there wasn't a flying saucer crash on Brazel's ranch on the debris field, and they created this other alternate site to throw people off. Or maybe an event took place in the plains of San Augustine.
That was my next question. If the government didn't have any involvement in it, why would they buy Mac Brass or a pickup truck to shut him up, you know? And also, you mentioned that your father, I believe you said your father was in the intelligence agency.
Yeah.
That kind of tends to kind of push me towards the thought that maybe you're a little biased towards the Air Force.
Absolutely, 100%.
And, yeah, you know, so...
I'm not a government agent,
No,
but I am very pro-Air
saying,
Force.
you know,
staunch
I
pro-America.
think you would tend to move towards what the Air Force's explanation is about Roswell than what the layman might interpret it as being.
Valid
Also,
Can I answer that before we go to your next question? Okay.
Yes.
The Air Force loves you, okay? And they don't want to reveal the information that they're not invincible, that they were vulnerable, that we don't own the air skies, that some sort of incurring alien intelligence is coming down, investigating all of our sensitive installations and abducting our citizens. Do you think they want to put that out the wire? No. They want to say everything's going fine, there isn't some sort of casual agenda going on, and we don't know, we can't stop them. They're not going to tell you that. The Air Force wants to protect the Americans, but if they came out tomorrow and said, UFOs exist, do you know what the American public's reaction would be?
Sure.
So what? Who cares? I can get up in the morning, I gotta be at work at 7, you know? They haven't done anything so far, who cares?
I think a lot of it has to do with, if there is such a thing, which I think there may well have been. I know in '61 they had a whole bunch of astrophysicists get together and
Right. Brookings
they figured,
Institute.
they figured that in the very least there could be 4 million civilizations out there in our own galaxy alone.
Right.
And that was, you know.
But you're getting into SETI now, and I think SETI is just a silly
Well,
farce.
that's not exactly SETI. SETI was a little after that. But I mean, they figured if they took 10% of all the possible
The Drake
stars,
equation.
right, that there would probably be around 4 million, I think,
Yeah,
it was in our
absolutely.
own galaxy. that
It's a
could
valid
possibly have-
postulation, the Drake equation, which says that if
The
there's
Drake
X amount of
equation. Right.
planets, who can support life, what type of star, whatever. But SETI is run by people that are searching for extraterrestrials but don't believe in them.
Well,
Isn't that a paradox?
part, you know, that's a hit and miss type of thing for me.
It's
But,
a joke.
But then again, if the government does know about certain crash sites, like they did in Exeter or PA or different other ones that I can recall,
Catchbird.
you know, wouldn't it be normal for the government to try to cover something like that if they could glean all the technical information
Right.
that they have
Right.
supposedly done right now, you
Yeah.
know? And of course, they wouldn't want the normal lay person to know anything about it because they wouldn't want other counterintelligence groups to know about
Right,
it.
can I talk to you about MSRP? I'm not talking about manufacturer suggested retail price. What I'm talking about is military satellite reentry phenomena. If a pop fall, as the military intelligence called it, a Soviet satellite re-enters and plummets to the Earth. Naturally, they're going to cordon off the area because not only do you have high-powered optics with uncanny resolution, you've got nuclear propulsion, which is a public health hazard, and also odd alloys. What type of alloys are you using, okay? And of course, they're going to cordon off the area, and everybody says, like in the Kecksburg event, flying saucer crash, flying saucer crash. But there's only one problem with that. In the intelligence community, these satellites are made to burn up upon re-entry. Do you think they're going to be that stupid? Perhaps in '65 they were. Not nowadays. To allow a satellite to re-enter whereby the United States could glean technology from it, or conversely the Soviet Union. The Soviets just had a satellite re-enter last week. Right now the United States government just got permission to shoot down satellites with laser beams.
Yeah.
Now you know as well as I do the government has a history of doing things and then asking for them later. So that tells me they've already shot down satellites and now they're just saying, we got the go-ahead to do it. You know, that's just the way the government is. They disavowed stealth, the stealth bomber. They won't even acknowledge Area 51 for the first time with the lawsuits, and I want to show that tape at the break. That's when I want to get to a break. But that's the way the government reacts. But with spy satellites, the government, say the Soviets are looking at us. We're not concerned what they're using to look at on our clothesline in our backyard. We're saying, why are you looking at that and not this, where you should be looking? Okay, we don't care what you're looking at us with. It's just, what of mine are you looking at? That, again, the 180 degrees, the government, that's the way they look at it. They couldn't care less what you have. It's, what are you looking at and why? And why aren't you should be looking over here, why aren't you? Anybody else?
First of all, I'm curious, you know, you're saying things that,
Contradict.
I've been in this for a long time. I'm going to tell you right now, and you're saying things that, of course, I'm going to get together with you, right? Because there's something I don't understand. where you get these things back. But,
Like what, for instance?
well, first of all, number one, like SETI. Okay, believe it or not, I was a member of the planning system.
I still am, I have been since I was
And
16.
basically, SETI was a project that was not a goofball project. SETI was an honest project. It was done by people that.
It was, but
Very
it had lofty
serious
goals
about-
thwarted by individual greed.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
cross-section.
can imagine there was some, it was just like UFON and some of them other, they had.
I'll talk with you, Art, about setting
Yeah,
off this, but if,
But what I'm trying to get at is this, I hope you do try to sit back here and talk, because there is some things that we should,
Sure.
think. But I'm curious now, because first of all, I haven't heard you mention anything about the archaeological team that was supposed to come across this here particular thing in the
Yeah. desert.
Now, from what I understand from the first
Wind Buster.
documentary that I saw, okay, there was a woman who was on that team, came forward later on, was interviewed. I don't remember her name, I just.
could I interject here though briefly regarding the archaeologist, Gerald Anderson, the guy who I told you the 5 crash sites that he peddled them to Stanton Friedman, he was the first to mention archaeologists, okay? He mentioned them back in 1990 on Unsolved Mysteries. He said it was a Dr. Wynn Busker. After some examination and tracing, I believe Stan Gordon was involved with this from Pennsylvania, they found out that Wynn Busker wasn't an archaeologist, it was his high school teacher. Okay? And I think that Ragsdale, who was very well informed about, before his death, about the Roswell thing, heard archaeologists, and Ragsdale then puts archaeologists on site at the Corn Impact Ranch. The only problem with that is that Ragsdale says that he does not see Barney Barnett on site. I'm sorry, doesn't see the archaeologists on site. He does not mention that until afterwards. He says that he went down after the next day, and then the military came careening over. Then he adds the element of archaeologists after the fact. After he recants his testimony, moves it to Boy Scout Mountain.
Okay, now see that part I didn't.
Yeah, but I didn't mention it. I felt it was
The
insignificant.
particular group, now there was what she said, this woman who was on that came forward, mentioned that there was bodies there. Okay, now she claims that what she saw was bodies that were much like us, but small. They didn't have these big eyes and some stuff. They looked much like us. And so here's another guy I'm curious about. A guy by the name of Kaufman. Now, he all of a sudden shows up.
Frank Kaufman.
What is he by?
Frank Kaufman?
Yeah.
Frank Kaufman, again, double talk, has recanted testimony, very inconsistent, heavy drinker. Like Kevin Randall told me, you give him a few beers, he'll tell you anything. Kevin Randall got sucked into his testimony and then backed off and wanted nothing to do with it. Unfortunately, his partner, Don Schmidt, fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Frank Kaufman's laughed at by the people at the museum in Roswell because he's just told so many tales, so many stories. It's been very
Let's go.
I heard about it.
Let's go one more question for somebody that has the last one yet.
Very briefly.
About the little old inn.
The Little Alien is in Area 51 in Nevada. But I'll get to
Very
that.
briefly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Very briefly, the age of your father, please.
Huh?
Age of your father, please.
68 years old, 69 next August.
That's a question.
Shoot, he's a youngster.
Get him a break. Give him a break.
As far as being able to move on land, very good question, Monty. We moved back to the Loch Ness. It has the flipper picture, which you'll see taken by Dr. Rhines through infrared and sonar imaging. Lends itself not as a flipper of a dolphin, but it's got a bone running right down the center of it, which we give it allow it to propel itself on land, like a walrus, like a seal, or whatever. Yeah, so ambulatory, which would lend credence to the sightings of the monster on land by the Spicers, by a man named Arthur Brandt on his motorcycle. No. But again, people now, you have people at Loch Ness now that don't believe, some people don't believe on land stories, although there's a rich lore.
We'll be back to John after the intermission.